You lived in Arizona. You grew up in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
And then you moved to New York. So where did you first get exposed basically to jazz in Arizona, or what were those first thingies?
I got very lucky. I had very cool teachers very early on, and yeah, I was very fortunate. I mean, I hooked up with the right people in a state where there's not a lot of music. You know?
And that's why, yeah.
Yeah, but I got really connected with very aware and cool people who were very interested in jazz and loved jazz, and also I think they also recognized that I had something, and they really steered me into really good directions, and they also provided me to meet other people who were connected really fast. So that was really lucky. And
but you started with saxophone, or
what's that?
Or
yes.
No,
I started on saxophone. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't pick up the clarinet till later, when I thought I wanted to be a studio musician, and moved to LA, and
really?
I mean, because the things that I loved as a kid that really got me were like, these kinds of movies, action movies, cop movies, where they had the scores were done by Lalo Schifrin, and this kind of thing, Clint Eastwood movies, Steve McQueen movies.
That's amazing.
With this thing, and I just thought it was the coolest shit to be able to be a musician who played on these scores. The score to a Cassavetes movie, has this saxophone through the whole thing blowing. That's crazy, and it turns out it's a Mexican guy named Anthony Ortega, who Charlie Hayden would talk to me about. Yeah,
Anthony Ortega. He did it on records on Hat Hat or Intact, actually.
Yes,
no,
yes.
Oh, he's Mexican. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, just he played on one of these lavish kind of movie scores, from these movies in the 70s. And I mean, that really wanted me, so I started to prepare for kind of that way to move to LA, which was next to Arizona.
Yeah.
And then it just wasn't for me, just the doubles, studying flute and clarinet. I played a musical for 1 month. I did a show called Annie. This is in Phoenix before I came to New York for the first time. And I hated it. I just hated it. And I decided then, and I must have been about 24, 25 years old. I think I decided that I wanted to just play jazz and really focus on being a soloist and an improviser.
Yeah.
And so the first time I came to New York was, I was about 25, 26 years old. And I went to study in New Jersey to a place called William Patterson, which was a college then, and now it's become a university.
And Joe Lovano, no, or someone who was your teacher, right? Also,
Joe Lovano was my teacher, and a really important teacher too at the time was the pianist arranger Jim McNeely.
Oh yeah, wow.
He was really important.
Yeah. So he taught there. Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, but you remember?
What's that?
You remember like the first jazz records that you heard? Like, I don't know, was it like Kind of Blue or Coltrane, or what were like those first records that blew your mind, like from jazz, let's say?
Yeah, for me, Dexter Gordon records. I really it hit me faster. My high school band director would give me a stack of LPs like this.
Oh, wow.
And then I would hold on to them for a few months, and then I'd take them back to him, and then he would bring me another stack. And in that, there was a lot of Charlie Parker, there was a lot of, Count Basie, famous big bands. And but I really connected with Dexter and Bird, and yeah, those were the early things. And then later, a little after that, like getting into college, I discovered all of the Blue Notes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and all of the, you know, and getting into Coltrane more.
Yeah.
And then also in that time, I connected to Paul Motian,
Yeah.
where I heard Frizzell and Lovano
Yeah,
and
that's such
Jim Pepper and that quintet that
a
fell
quintet.
into my hands. And
Yeah.
for me, that blew my mind. I mean, for me, that blew like, wow, just the type of music, the simplicity of it, these lullabies that Motian wrote,
Yeah.
you know, that really got me. It really got me, and it allowed me to say, wow, here's a music that I can really relate to, that I think is so personal and unique, and it's yeah.
And then you actually played with Paul, right, on Garden of Eden, right?
Yeah.
How did this happen? You also played then on the Adobe of yours, right?
Yeah, Adobe.
Yeah, Adobe. Yeah. So how does this thing happen? The connection then with
I don't
did he
know.
call you?
I just think the dots all connect. You know, I mean, I think it's such a small community.
Yeah.
It's incredible the how the dots connect and keep connecting in lots of ways.
Yeah.
But I came to town, you know, the second time. So I went to school here for 2 years, and during that time I met some very important people. So between 90 and 92, when I was going to William Patterson, I did meet Tom Rainey and played with Tom.
Really?
Yeah, and I played with Formanek.
Okay, so that's
And
where that started. Okay.
that already started some stuff. You know, I played in the
Yeah.
Mingus Big Band during that time.
Yeah.
While I was going to school. And then when I came back, those connections really helped me out. And
Yeah.
I think you know, I started playing with Monder
Yeah.
in other projects. I started playing with Chris Cheek
Yeah.
and in other projects, and I think, you know, Cardenas I met around through them in these little things, sideman things, and I think when Potter was started to get busy, they recommended me. I don't know who exactly, but it might have been Monder or Cheek.
Yeah. They played. Yeah. Wow, amazing. Yeah. How was it like for you to play with Paul?
Incredible.
I mean,
Incredible. Hey, could you hold on a second? Hey, Duke, come here. Sit down. Lay down. Lay down. Come on. Quiet. I mean, you know, just what I said before about just his records from the early '80s. You know, the records, Mysterioso,
Yeah, that's incredible.
with the quintet. You know, that really got me. And then the early trio records. It should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, that's
His
incredible.
his record with Charles Brackeen, the two of them, the one with Jenny JF Park, you know, with JF, and
Yep.
the other one. It connected me. It was very important because it connected me to Ornette.
Oh yeah.
It's like I went backwards a little bit from there. You know, I was really a hard bop kind of guy, and then I heard these records, and then I that led me to the importance of Ornette Coleman, the importance of Paul Bley, the importance of
Yeah.
Charlie, the American Quartet.
Yeah.
All of
Yeah.
those became my favorite records, and Paul's on a lot of that, you know, a lot of that music. So for me to get to do that now with somebody who's the real deal from that,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
You also
Very
played with Charlie, right? In
yeah
Liberation Orchestra.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah
How was that? That was also amazing, right? Or,
yeah.
yeah, it's
No, I
incredible. Yeah,
mean
you did.
he's one of the heaviest. I mean, just his sound, just his notes, just this. He's really connected to the real shit.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Yeah, I
no,
mean, yeah.
yeah, and there were beautiful experiences. Yeah, nothing negative to say about any of that.
Nah, yeah, you can hear on Adobe. Drew is on bass, right? Drew Gress.
Yeah.
Yeah, that record is just like the compositions and everything you play. It's just, it feels so natural. It has this,
Yeah.
this, you know, flow of just, you put it on and you're like, that's such a cool record. I remember you gave me that record, I think, when I came to New York the first time when we recorded.
Oh yeah.
I think it was, yeah, I still have it. Like,
Hey, what year was that?
I think it was like 2005.
Okay, so it was a little later, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
2004.
And that was
2004.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's when I met you with Tom and Elias, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you gave me that record, and I was just, I put it on in that apartment where I was staying. I just blew my mind, man. That was such a cool one. It's, you know, incredible.
Well, thank
I
you.
mean, you mentioned otherwise. We talk now about Hayden and Paul Motian and all these amazing guys, and you seem to establish also some amazing relationships with long-standing relationships with drummers and bass players, like you know, the trio Open Loose with Marc,
Yeah.
Marc Elias and Tom Rainey, and then you have this another rhythm section with Nasheet Waits and William Parker, the Tamarindo band. How, of course, there's a difference between the music, but how do you see a difference between them as rhythm sections?
There's a linear thing with, well, no, I guess that's not the right word. With Tom and Marc Elias, there's I mean, they're my soul brothers, and there's a new recording that was just unearthed that's from 20 years ago, from when the band started, and it's after touring for 3 weeks, and then we went into Radio France and did a concert there that was recorded very well. Elias just put it out. It's on Bandcamp.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I have to listen to it.
I can't think of the title right now. Sorry, but anyway, there's a very vertical thing with the time. With the time, how things line up, the types of amps, the types of modulations, polyrhythms, things that are very structured in this kind of fashion. And I think with Nasheet and William, it's more of a wash.
Yes. Okay.
It's like those hosts are not there, and it's a different type of storytelling. It's a different type of poetry for me that's more in the cracks.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to explain it? I mean, I don't want to take away from either camp because they're so valuable to me, and they're very important to me. Yeah. And I mean, I think something that I'm trying to do as a player is have both things all the time. I want to have that kind of depth from both things. And I think my whole thing is based on the tension from one and the other and playing with that. And how far can you push it out? How far can you snap it back together and it's there, clear as a bell. And then boom, how far can you go from that? And I mean, those are things that I'm still trying to create and find those kinds of relationships, you know.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, what do you seek? I mean, you basically answered it, but what do you seek in musicians you want to play with, or this certain kind of openness, but on the other hand, also this organism?
Yeah, well, that's the important thing. I mean, there's people that I'm really fascinated by because they have such a defined voice and style, but they can bend that and shift their shape. Ben Monder is another one that's really comes to mind. I mean, including all the guys we just talked about. I mean, all of them can do this. They have this quality. They can all get in the cracks, or they can really define it. You know, another one is John Hollenbeck. Another one is there's many guys who have that thing. You know, pianists like Angelica Sanchez, Chris Davis, you know, Craig Taborn. Jacob Sachs. You know, he has such a definition of his musicianship, but he can bend it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Eivind Opsvik. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Yeah. I mean, something that hit me when I first got to New York is there was this dimension to me of people who played with Fred Hirsch, and a lot of those guys were also playing with Tim Byrne.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And there's a big connection there with Marc Elias, Formanek. You know, I mean, Tom Rainey, Nasheet. I can go on and on and on. You know, John Hebert is another one of these guys who can really flex to find that, find a point where we can meet up, but create this new thing. And yeah, there's, you know, and I mean, that's why one lives in New York, you know?
Yeah, but you've been playing with all these guys that you mentioned now for 20, 25 years. Yeah. Does it, do you see like, I mean, okay, when I listen to these records, there is like a development, but do you as a saxophone player, as Tony, see you guys growing together or going to different directions?
Yeah.
Is it always fresh? I mean, like when you do stuff still?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a source of power. It's a source of, for me, it's still where I really get my ass kicked, because there is such trust and there is such language and stuff like this. But sometimes I feel like, wow, it's not my night. It's wow, Rainey sounds ridiculous tonight. Wow, Monder's playing the shit out of it. And for me, that I have to go up to that. So I train so that I can have my night.
Yeah.
Hopefully this next one is my night. That kind of thing. Which is, and it's not a competitive thing. It's just being there present. And then, yeah, there's a gig I did in January with Tom Rainey and Angelica at the Greenwich House. And for me, I'm still so inspired by the clarity of the flow of how we interacted and how that meant, and trying to maintain that. You know?
Yeah, it's amazing what you have with Tom. I think you played together on 20 records at least or something like.
Yeah.
But it's just you have somehow. I listen to you guys and it's just like this. Everything you do is.
It's crazy telepathy. It's crazy telepathy. Yeah.
I mean, I saw you guys open loose with Marc in Graz in Stockwerk years ago. And it was just, you know, I sat 3 meters away and we were like this heavy thunderstorm came and it just, you know, it went through and it was clarity in the end, you know. So it's like amazing how you know, come together to everything. So, but I want to go back to one of my favorite, I mean, biggest heroes on guitar, the biggest maybe Ben Monder. How did you meet Ben, or when did you start playing with him first, with Full Motion?
Well, no, the first time I met Ben is he was playing at the Knitting Factory and I was playing at the Knitting Factory. We were playing in different rooms, but we found each other at the bar, and I went up to him and I said, "Hey man, I think we're gonna play music someday." I might have been a little drunk, and I said, I first heard you. I said, I heard you on a Mark Johnson record where you play a break on a blues, and I said, that's the most amazing break I've ever heard in my life, and I really want to play with you. And I introduced myself, and he started laughing. I remember he thought it was really funny, yeah. And then a few months later, we were playing together.
Yeah. Well.
And so
yeah,
we played in a group of an Argentine composer named Guillermo Klein.
Oh yeah, that's a great band, yeah.
And I mean, Chris Cheek was there, you know, so I met Chris at the same time. And then right around all of that, I started playing at the Internet Cafe with a lot of bands, and Ben was in a lot of those little projects, you know, in a lot of those groups, and it was a really exciting time. You know?
But it took you a really long time, like Paloma Recio, when you recorded. That's the first record you did with Ben, right? Like under your name. I mean.
Yeah.
It's like amazing how you. I saw the other day one footage also you, Ben, and Tom from Cornelia when you played just in trio.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so we're doing that. We're doing it a lot. I mean, we recorded. That was my last gig in Manhattan. I haven't been in Manhattan since March 5th, and it was recorded very well.
Oh wow!
And then I'm playing with them on the 30th at Barbez this month, and it's the first time I'm going to go into town, which is kind of scary. But it's a band that has some mileage now, and it's one of my favorite situations right now.
Yeah, you seem to kind of blend together with Ben. He does some sonic stuff, you know, distortion, and you squeeze your way somewhere in, or it's like again this telepathic almost connection you have with him. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been at it for 20 years. I mean, with Tom even a little longer. The way that how I'm understanding playing with Monder, and I'm trying to keep it and not be theoretical and mathematical, but there is so much theory to how I'm working on it. But when we get together, it's like we create a compound with his shit and with my shit, and when it really comes together, it's like we create this harmonic and a melodic thing that's just I can only do it with him. And it's like the stuff that I'm working on with my shapes and with my kind of modes or things that I'm checking out on the saxophone. When I do it with Ben, it's how I'm formulating it in a sense. It's like when I'm sitting here working on these shapes, it's like I'm hearing him play these drones. And he's stalking me, and out of that comes this new kind of vertical harmonic feel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're really cool colors with what he does and how he orchestrates that with all his pedal effects and that whole color world that he gets into. And also it's always with impeccable time. So with him and Rainey, the time thing is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Are you gonna review this stuff?
Yeah, we're trying, and yeah.
Good.
I mean, just the state we're in right now. I mean, we're what's going to happen? Where's it going? Yeah. So most likely, probably Sunnyside will put it out.
That's amazing.
Which put out Adobe, you know, and I think a lot of Ben's records are on Sunnyside too.
I think 2, or 3.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
but with this group, with Ben, Paloma, I read somewhere that you wrote only graphic scores.
No,
I mean,
right? There was a few. There was a few tunes.
Because I listened to that Artifact and Glass on Incantation Suite, like I was like, no, that's not possible. You know, it's quite composed and.
No, I mean, I'll tell you about it. I mean, you being a guitar player, when I first started playing with Ben, I used to write out chord symbols. You know, and I experienced something where I wrote 3 voices, right? So my voice, Ben's voice, and Eivind's voice, and no chord changes. So Ben has a line, but then I asked him, can you orchestrate this and play your line sometimes, and then harmonize this sometimes? And then what I got was more of the effect that I always wanted, because he would improvise something quarterly. and he would do it off of the line or not or that. And then also sometimes we would switch voices where he would play the top voice and harmonize that, and I play the second voice.
Oh wow.
So then I got away from chord symbols for him.
Yeah.
And I mean, out of that came starting to write with graphic scores, which I can show you some of that. You know, there was elements where I would have scribbling lines, which were Nasheet and I, and then above that there would be a black moon. All right, and then next to that there would be a big lightning bolt going down to the ground with an arrow down or an arrow up, and that was for the bass player. So Nasheet and I are shredding. Monder has to play a black moon.
How cool.
All right, and then some space, and then this lightning bolt from the bass, and then more space with Nasheet and I, then the black moon again.
Wow.
And I mean, and that for me, I was just trying to create a special, a type of spatial sense where they don't have to follow me or accompany me in a normal way. Like, let's make this painting together.
Yeah, it sounds.
And so that also created a language of how we improvise together and play together.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's like so natural. But what you do, that record's Incantation Suite, that's really a strong one. All 4 pieces there are just like, again, you do your shit on the most amazing possible way, you know. So I'm really curious of the trio now with Tom. This is how this thing is gonna sound. So yeah.
But you said cool. there's something on YouTube with that trio.
Yeah, it's from Cornelia. I don't know which date it is, but it's like a whole set or the whole gig
from Cornelia.
Yeah, and it sounds really. I watched it the other day, and Cornelia is great because it has the video, the entire stage basically, and you see all 3 of you guys like really, you know, incredible. So it's quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good band.
And something that's really cool about that trio is it you know, Nasheet does it a lot, and so does Billy Mintz.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of a revolving drummer thing, but it's mostly Rainey. I mean, the original guy was Tom Rainey when we started doing that.
Does it influence change really strongly if you change Billy Mintz or Tom Rainey and Nasheet Waits?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really. I mean, here's the thing that when Ben and I find each other, this both bending in that to ride with these different drummers or create the different poetry with these guys, it's really good for Ben and I. You know?
Yeah.
It keeps evolving.
Yeah.
And it's just from what we've been through with Paloma.
Yeah.
From what we've been through in that kind of thing, it's
it's incredible.
And just instrumentally, he's so heavy, you know. It's just it really. I have to practice just to play that kind of basketball with him. You know, I have to train. I really have to train. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and it's the same with all the people we've been talking about. I mean, they're still my most important inspirations, right?
Yeah. But what about I don't know, Ducret, on the other hand, if we talk about guitar players?
Yeah.
How different was, for instance, playing with him? He's way more rhythmical in a sense of this staccato-ish almost lines, right?
Yeah, it's a more textural rhythmic thing, as opposed to with Ben, it's more of a harmonic rhythmic thing.
Yeah.
And Ben's the way Ben uses texture, it's very harmonic still. It's like I'm playing with an orchestra.
Yeah,
all of a sudden. It feels like I'm playing with with Marc, it's like I'm playing with a swarm of insects. You know?
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting attacked by these crazy birds. With Monder, there's more of a bath. sensation. I'm in warm
Yeah.
water. I'm in the ocean.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. No, I miss playing with Marc a lot. I mean, again, yeah, I really miss that. I don't know if you ever heard my ex-wife's records, Angelica's records
I
with
have
Marc.
with Marc. Those are on Clean Feet, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are incredible.
Just playing heads with him, the sound we would create.
Yeah. Also, the trio with Vern and Tom, Big Satan. That's one of my favorite trios of all times. You know, it's amazing what he does. Yeah, and then, but I want to go also to some other musical relationship of yours that kind of really touched me in a way. Is with Chris Lightcap. I discovered that quartet that he had, the Layup and the early Big Mouth with Bill McHenry, like years ago in 2005. I already had those albums. How do you see that group develop? Because I think Chris kept you in all of these super deluxe and super big mouth bands. How did you see the development of this band in terms of playing and composing, for instance, for you?
Well, I think it started off like a certain, just of a certain type of jazz quartet, with really cool tunes.
Yeah, amazing.
And kind of, yeah. And I think it just got more personalized with his pop influence and his. I mean, he's such a great player, and also he's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
And I mean, he really knows how to write songs and present an ensemble, and everybody can sing. Everybody can. It's just been a beautiful kind of thing. I think when Cheek came into the picture. The sound that him and I get.
Yeah, it's amazing. Those two double lines, it's just like.
Yeah, I mean, it's really beautiful. You know what I mean? The Taborn element in that, is just so powerful.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, all of these things. It's just how all the dots connect. You know what I'm seeing? Also, there was a period with Gerald and Eivind Opsvik's band with Jacob Sax, and and then Taborn would get in there too. So this was kind of going on, and it's just that this generation of people that came to New York at the same time, and found each other, you know.
With all these guys, really.
Chris Lightcap told me that he heard me on a cassette tape playing Inner Urge.
Oh, wow.
When I was at William Patterson. And somehow he was playing with a drummer that was on this tape, who was from Arizona too, who went to William Patterson with me. A drummer named John Nish, who was playing with Lightcap, and he says, "Hey man, you got to hear this tenor player." And Chris heard me that way, and somehow he got my number, found me that way.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and yeah. So I've been playing with Gerald since then. That's when I met Gerald.
Gerald is also amazing, right?
Was through Lightcap's band. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Gerald's playing. I played with him a couple of times also. This is again his flow, like Nasheet kind of like this.
Yeah.
Talking about it, and it's just like an endless. It's amazing. Yeah. And on the other hand, I want to ask you, like, we're talking now about the New York scene and how you are involved in that. But on the other hand, I mean, you're also really involved in Europe, or have been. Do you see like a difference between European improvisation or musicians and the New York scene, or no?
I don't know. I don't want to say. I think it's just I found my people here because I moved here, and I also found people in Europe that I really love to play with. That young people and older people. But I mean, I just have such a strong connection to New York. It's just personal from when I first got here, and just that story and the internet cafe, the knitting factory, these places, Cornelia Street, Barbez, you know, playing at the Vanguard with Fred Hirsch, with Motion for me, and who I was playing with in those situations. You know, that's just my history, and I don't put it be better than things that are happening in Europe, or it's not about that. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I connect with people who kind of have this kind of jazz thread to the avant-garde. You
Mhm.
know. And I associate more with them than with people who come from the noise, from the Berlin
Yeah.
minimalist or that kind of thing. I mean, for me, it's just kind of this jazz. Yeah, I mean, I moved to New York to play jazz. Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, and I mean that kind of led me to, I think, a more personalized type of jazz, and a lot of people will not call it jazz, but I feel very a part of the jazz tradition.
Yeah, definitely. You
Yeah.
still play standards sometimes? You mentioned inner urge.
Um, a
Or,
little bit. I mean, I work on things. Yeah, I work on things. You know, I mean, since COVID started, I got into a whole thing with I I I I have a student who studies with me every Wednesday,
uh-huh.
and we started working on Segment, the Charlie Parker tune, because to work on minor key stuff, and it got me going into this whole thing with minor triads, and I've got all these new shapes and stuff like
Uh-huh.
this coming from that, from Segment and In a Sentimental Mood.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so I still work from these kinds of things like that. I don't perform a lot of standards. It's, you know, the last time I played a whole gig of standards was with Fred Hirsch in January at
Uh,
Mesro. But it's still something, it's where I come from, and I love doing it. Um, and from that, I get ideas on how, you know, a lot of Tony ideas come out of how to organize my linear language and harmonic language. You know?
yeah.
So
Definitely.
from
Yeah.
this segment thing, it's just still, yeah. So I still work from that stencil, if you want to put it, or from that
Yeah.
kind of mold. Yeah, that's where my power comes from.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah,
but lately you've been mostly involved into more improvisation, right? Do you still
yeah.
compose?
I'm starting to. I have been lately. Yeah, I'm back to it. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I really love your compositions already from
Oh,
Sabino and
thank
all
you.
those records. You know, it's there's
Thank you.
something special. This blend of ornette mixed with you, I guess. It would, you know, with this grooves kind of a like Indian vibe in a way, or something. Not Indian, but you know, native, something.
Native American. Yeah.
Yeah, native, something primary. You know, it's there, and yeah, we want to hear more of that actually. So.
Well, I don't know, but since I've been in it, I mean, I really see with my students and with, I mean, I always thought the name of the game was to have your own voice, to not
Yeah,
sound like other people. You know,
I
I
think you.
mean, that was always the most important thing. It seems these days everybody wants to sound like other people to prove they can play. You know,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
see a lot of that with, yeah, and I just want to be a part of a different type of narrative that comes from my heroes, and I just want to be somebody who's trying to keep that tradition going of people like Dewey Redman,
Yeah, right.
you know, Jim Pepper, you know, even Garber for me is very important.
The early stuff is amazing. Yeah,
It's just that note to note storytelling, as opposed to lick playing and patterns and chops and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's
yeah,
just that kind of poetry that's, you know, which comes from Lee Konitz, which comes from, you know, yeah, early Jarrett and early Blake. You know,
Definitely, yeah.
so beautiful. So,
But
but
if
how
you
do we do
compose,
it? How do I do that with my history and
yeah.
with my, you know, experience? That's what I'm trying to
But when you compose, do you do you compose for a band, for a musician in your mind, or just you basically you write stuff, for instance?
It depends. I mean, if sometimes it's really clearly it's going to be with Monder, you know, or and here's the thing that happens sometimes is I'll try some of the material with Ben, and it doesn't work like I was hearing, and then I'll do it with William Parker, and it's like, whoa, there it is.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely.
So being flexible that way, but it's my language. But sometimes I will try to frame it with Ben, Nasheet, and Eivind, or with Tom. You know, I've been feeling Tom and Formanek lately, like this some of the things that I'm writing. You know?
Oh wow, that would be cool. That would be a nice
And
trio.
yeah, and
Very
just
cool.
working. I mean, I spent a really long time on sonic expression.
Hmm.
You know, from really trying to get into nature, really trying to get into extended techniques with the saxophone to approach that world.
Hmm.
And I'm now lately since this quarantine, it's like I'm really working on my linear playing again.
Hmm.
You know, and
Oh,
organizing line playing.
that's quite
How
cool.
far you want to nerd out on this? But
No, no, but I get it. Yeah, definitely. Well, I just have one last question, Tony. Like,
sure.
how do you, I watched this Cornelia, or when I played with you, or when I listen to you, sometimes you can play a solo, which is like this long river flowing. But sometimes you play, I don't know, it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes long. Then you play and you stop. And how do you develop like a story that always keeps going? What do you think of? Do you think of something when you play these long stories, or how do you approach these long impros of
Well, I
Tony
mean,
or being you?
I've been working on that for 30 years,
Yeah.
and I tell everybody that you have to be patient with it, and I also practice things that that I will practice for 3 or 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm concentrating in this kind of thing, and things that really influence that is a connection to nature, is a
Oh,
connection to water, how water flows, ocean, rivers, streams,
yeah, that's what I
and
mean, like a
how
river.
and how I'm a fisherman. I love to swim in the ocean. I love to swim in pools. I swim a lot. I'm really connected to that type of thing. I went fishing with A Bear yesterday. We
Oh,
went fishing, and just those elements. When you're out there, how birds call to one another and leave space when they're really active, and then they turn off, and then other things emerge out of that. I'm trying to connect all of that to how I play music. There can be so much intensity, and it's relaxed and
yeah, at the
flowing
same time. Yeah.
and flowing. So not forcing, And
Yeah.
I think it's about work. Have to work at it. It's not something that's just gonna. You have to organize it and hit it every day. And I've got a whole new thing going that I know I'm going to practice for 4 years, three
Oh,
or 4 years, and it's with minor triads.
that's what you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, and just not trying to make it sound like Berganzi or these patterns from Berkeley or these patterns from some jazz lake dude who makes videos about
Yeah,
this.
the Tony
It's
going.
not. It's how to open this up into a Tony thing, and hiding where the math is, the theory is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just had an experience where I played with Bob Moses duo. I went to Bob Moses' house and we played duo. and it was what you said that you think you're getting from me. It was times 10. It felt like I was standing in front of the ocean and there was 12-foot waves coming at me, and me trying to get through them, under them, letting them take me, splash me, destroying me in the sand. It was so powerful, and within that, I could hear all the ancestry from Baby Dodds, Max Roach, everything.
Yeah.
It was all there, and I mean, I want to have that.
Yeah.
I want to have that, and I think everybody works on that in their own way, and it's important to be working at that.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Tony.